Shalom. This week we begin the book of Shemot, meaning names, known as Exodus, the second book of the Torah, sometimes referred to as the book of redemption. And our portion this week is Parashat Shemot. Events taking place over a progression of many years unfold in our portion, and there's so much to learn. Enter Moshe, the Redeemer of Israel, who will, from this point, figure prominently in every Torah portion till the end of Deuteronomy, save but one. But our Parsha commences with the intriguing transition of Israel from being a group of individuals, each whom we still knew by name, into a nation. Everyone has a name. Our names too are in the Torah. But each individual takes his and her place within the nation and has a role to play, a mission to fulfill as part of the nation. So last week, we concluded the book of Bereshit, Genesis. In Bereshit, with its sprawling, massive concepts, the book of foundations, really, the basis for all reality was established. We went from creation ex nihilo, from nothing, through God's disappointments, to the manifestation of the beginnings of the nation of Israel, the vessel which God chose and began to prepare to receive his light and channel it into the world. We learned of the emergence of Abraham and God's promises to him and his offspring through Yitzchak, of the travails of Yaakov and his children, winding up with Yosef's estrangement, descent into Egypt, rise to power, and finally the reunion of the family of Israel in Egypt and the beginning of their sojourn there. Our portion of Shemot chronicles the emergence of a new nation and bears witness to its earliest struggle to survive in the face of a deadly foe that's committed to its subjugation and ultimately to its destruction. Shemot, the first portion of this book of Shemot, deals with birth. Indeed, we can sense from the outset that there's a birth in progress. There's something developing, latent, at first hidden, not revealed, then slowly taking form. That something is Israel. Israel, whose purpose is to reveal God's purpose in this world, to reveal God's presence in this world, hasn't hitherto appeared yet. Up until this point, the Torah has recounted the lives of great people, the Avot, the forefathers, whose righteous lives inspires us and bequeaths to us goals to aspire to. But however great, they're only individuals forging a path in this world. They raise families who travel along those paths together. But the nation of Israel has not yet appeared, not until now. It's our Parsha that witnesses a transformation from great men to beginning of a great nation. The process of transition from a group of individuals to a whole nation particularly stands out in the verses that begin our portion. And these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. Each man and his household came, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehudah, continuing. Now all those descended from Jacob were 70 souls, and Joseph was in Egypt. As the Parsha opens, Yaakov's descendants are numbered, still known by name, and reckoned as individuals. This is reflected by Rashi's comments on these words. Citing the Midrash, he states that this is why the children of Israel are likened to stars. He says, although God counted them in their lifetime by their names, as we find in Genesis chapter 46, he counted them again after their death to let us know how precious they are to him, because they were likened to the stars, which he takes out from beyond the horizon and brings in by number and by name, as it is said, it's actually Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 26, who takes out their host by number, all of them he calls by name. And this verse in Isaiah indicates that each star has a separate and unique identity and shines its light individually. But at this point, with the passing of that generation, we read in verse 6, and Yosef and all his brothers and all that generation died. This verse is a crucial, pivotal turning point. It essentially closes the entire first stage of creation, of everything that's transpired until this point. And now, here in Egypt, a population explosion is underway. As we read in verse 7, children of Israel were fruitful, teemed, increased, and became strong, very, very much so, and the land became filled with them. Our sages teach that Hashem blessed the Jewish families and they reproduced at an astounding rate. But this growth process was not only a matter of numbers, it was about the essence of who these souls are and what their mission is to be. And this is the preparation for the emergence of a nation. The stage is set for a nation to be born, but it has not yet appeared. Therefore, when a new king of Egypt arises who did not know Yosef, whatever that even means, I mean, how could a king not be familiar with the very recent history of how his own people and his land were rescued from most certain death, sustained through the most difficult period they ever faced? A new king literally, or a king who acted like he never heard of Yosef, the sages suggest. Whatever, when this new king who did not know Yosef and his generation arose, who did not know the children of Israel when they were still but a group of individuals, this new king identifies a new worrisome phenomena. And he said to his people, behold, the nation of the Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, are greater and mightier than us. This new king of Egypt has a special distinction. He's the first person to call Israel a nation. And what concerns this Pharaoh is that here is a nation emerging. He didn't care about their religion. That's the problem he identified, the Jewish problem, as it were, and that is what is disturbing him. And with a hat tip of appreciation to the president, he was completely right, because Israel is not a religion. Israel is a nation, a people. A people, of course, have a way of life and a language and a land where they belong. They don't just belong just anywhere, living just any sort of life. But I digress. So Pharaoh is frantic. He just can't, he just won't stand by as a new people are appearing on the stage of history, people with a divinely chartered mandate to change the course of history, to change the world, and to bring enlightenment of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, and redemption to mankind. This is the Jewish agenda, regardless of whether the Jewish people themselves are always aware of it. No matter, someone else will always remind them. And it's an agenda that doesn't fit everybody's plan. Now, the king of Egypt tries to stop the formation of this nation. He formulates decrees aimed at stopping this transition, this transformation of individuals into a nation. The first stage of Pharaoh's decrees was hard labor, keeping an entire nation busy with work whose goal was to afflict them, as the verse says. The Midrash elucidates that the true aim of this exhausting, debilitating hard labor was to keep them from having marital relations so as to stop them from having children. This was busy work, worthless, even counterproductive work. The famous management consultant Peter Drucker said, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." He must have studied Parashat Shemot. The sages teach that this hard labor was not constructive, not even work at all. It was just pointless servitude whose aim was to strangulate the nation, to destroy its morale. As much as it was physical abuse, it was also a type of psychological warfare whose ultimate aim was really to destroy them physically. The Midrash goes on to describe how at the conclusion of each hard day of labor, the cities of Pitom and Ramses, as far as they got in the construction of them, the cities of Pitom and Ramses would self-destruct so that all their labors would disintegrate and vanish before their eyes, and they would start again the next day. They had to face the fact. They knew they were accomplishing nothing with whatever time seemed to be left for their lives. This was the real affliction. Building cities to stay occupied to the point of total physical exhaustion, leaving them in a state too weak to reproduce and totally discouraged. Indeed, with the entire nation occupied day and night with meaningless activity, Pharaoh reasoned that they will be completely demoralized, left with no desire to procreate, building a city all day long and watching their day's work crumble at the close of each day. What's the sense of bringing children to a world like this? Why go on? What's the use? But yet, despite this, something unforeseen happened, as the Torah tells us. As they afflicted them, so they multiplied and so they increased. This people isn't operating according to natural law. They seem to be drawing strength supernaturally. They don't make sense. Indeed, doesn't Yitzchak mean laughter in the future tense? There's a cosmic irony here. They were still being born, children were still being born, and so the Egyptians became disgusted because of the children of Israel, as the verse says. Pharaoh's Mengel, his doctors, his genetic engineers, were all standing around with their white lab coats and clipboards, dumbfounded that the Jewish children are still being born. But Pharaoh doesn't give up, and he tries a different approach. Verse 13 tells us, and the Egyptians caused the children of Israel to work befarech, a word meaning with crushing hardness. And Rashi explains that this word means grueling work that breaks the body. This next stage of his attempt to derail the establishment of the nation of Israel was for the men's bodies to be so broken that all of their thoughts would be on their bodies, on their individual pain, and their most necessary needs for their immediate physical survival. But just in case this would not be enough, in verse 14 we read, and they embittered their lives with hard work, with mortar and bricks and every labor of the field. Now today, nobody wants to get their hands dirty. Everybody wants to be a manager, and nobody wants to be a simple laborer. But here, the entire nation was made to feel unfit or unworthy to be even manual building laborers, work which utilizes thought and creativity. The entire nation was transformed into brick makers. An entire nation working in the mudded straw. And again, if that isn't enough, the words tell us, and with every hard work in the field, and our sages ask, why does the verse emphasize that they worked in the field and not in the city? Because the Egyptians decreed that the men must sleep in the fields while the women remain at home in the city. Again, all to prevent them from multiplying. All this focus on multiplying, on Jewish births, Pharaoh was really obsessed with preventing it as the answer to the Jewish problem. He understands that the nation grows and develops through the, normal family units. And thus, his total focus becomes to break down the family unit. And consider this, perhaps, as a chilling, prophetic, fast-forward glimpse into our modern day. Our sages state, pithily, that Pharaoh forced women to do men's work and men to do women's work. This deep teaching isn't about washing the dishes or mowing the lawn, but rather an allusion to the fact that there is no greater method of destroying a family than sowing confusion between men and women and fomenting gender identity disorder. But Pharaoh doesn't stop here either. He demands that the midwives murder the male children immediately at birth. But in a seemingly inexplicable verse, inexplicable because of the unnatural courage displayed by these women, midwives come before this great king and they say, listen, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are lively. In Hebrew, chayotena, which can also literally mean they are beasts, like beasts of the field. And they say, before we get to them, the midwives explain, they've already given birth, so what do you want from us? They give birth, they get up, and they're out of there. To briefly paraphrase the words of the great Maharal, really what the midwives were saying to Pharaoh was that Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, is a different type of people. They're made of something else. Their very life force is different. Well, the world has always been aware of that and takes great pains to remind the Jews that they're not like everybody else. And though we may at times desperately try to pretend that we're like everyone else, it's not true. Am Yisrael has a different culture, a different morality, a different purpose, and calling, a different way of life, a different law. And when we forget this and try to pretend we are like everyone else, great trouble always ensues. Much to Pharaoh's chagrin, the children kept on being born in the merit of the righteous women of that generation who were not discouraged and who motivated their broken husbands to procreate, who came out to the fields at the end of the day to greet their husbands because they understood that they had a divinely appointed role to continue to bring the nation of Israel into the world. And they understood the holiness of the family. This parsha is all about the holiness of the family and that the nation will be born through families. Pharaoh's modern counterparts also understand that a nation rises up from the family unit. Has the family unit ever in history ever faced the onslaught of delegitimization and constant attack that it faces today? It was Pharaoh who first understood that in order to undermine the redemptive process personified by Israel, and in order to disable and defeat the spirit of mankind, destabilize the family unit, and all will fall apart. The emergence of the nation of Israel in this week's Torah portion from the depths of the dark and dismal despair of Egypt, the crucible, in the merit of the midwives and the righteous women of Israel, is an unabashed celebration of the victory of the families of Israel, becoming the nation of Israel, who, in the face of the greatest evil that this world has to offer at any given time, continues to raise high the banner of family and nation, and the banner of freedom from bondage and the promise of redemption for all the world.